You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
Voices for Justice is a podcast that uses adult language and discusses sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including violence, abuse, and murder. This podcast may not be appropriate for younger audiences. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Some names have been changed or omitted per their request or for safety purposes. Listener discretion is advised.
My name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. Today I'm discussing the case of Ana del Valle and Basil Gray. On the Friday before Mother's Day in 2018, 62-year-old Ana del Valle stayed home to wait for someone from the housing authority to inspect a leak in her apartment. In the neighboring apartment, Basil Gray returned home carrying a cup of coffee. Investigators believe that before the morning was over, both Ana and Basil had been shot and killed inside of their respective apartments. Multiple gunshots, 2 crime scenes just steps apart, a building filled with people. Yet no one called 911 to report the shootings, and the initial canvass produced 0 eyewitnesses. Nearly a decade later, the case remains one of New York City's most baffling unsolved double homicides. This is the case of Ana del Valle and Basil Gray. It's about 6 p.m. on Friday, May 11th, 2018. As Maria del Valle is on her way home from working at the Brooklyn hospital, she kicks off the Mother's Day weekend by stopping to buy some flowers for her mom. Maria was extremely close to her mother, 62-year-old Ana del Valle. The Brooklyn apartment where Ana raised her children was now a multi-generational family home, shared by Ana, Maria, and her twin brother Luis. The twins were now in their 40s, but by all accounts, Ana loved having them all together. So with flowers in hand, Maria made her way up to their family's apartment, 5C, just as she'd done countless times before in her life. But when she got to their unit, she immediately realized that the door was unlocked. This was odd to her because she, Luis, and their mother were meticulous about locking the door. And when she opened it, she was met with a horrific image. Her mother, Ana, was lying on the floor of their apartment, surrounded by blood. During an interview with the Unsolved Mysteries podcast, Maria said that she initially thought her mom had fallen and hit her head, so she grabbed her mom to try to help, and that's when she realized that her arms were bound with an electrical cord. Her interview is really nothing short of heartbreaking. She describes her disbelief as she tried to resuscitate her mom, thinking to herself that surely everything's going to be okay. But then she turned her mom over, and that's when she saw it. Ana had a gunshot wound on the side of her head and in the middle of her forehead. She was also shot in the torso, but it's unclear if Maria saw that immediately. In complete shock, she still manages to dial 911 for help. She later told ABC7 New York, quote, "I can never erase it. That horrific image of my mom. They tied her up, some coward with a gun. I try to imagine what she went through lying there, the whole day lying there, and I had to come and find her that way. It was so brutal." End quote. The NYPD was on the scene within minutes and immediately removed Maria from the scene. Detectives from the 90th Precinct quickly began investigating Ana's death as a homicide, but there was no clear motive. Ana had recently retired and had no known enemies. She didn't even have a criminal record. She spent most of her days in the community, at the supermarket, the gym, or mopping the 5th floor hallway for her and her neighbors. In all the reporting I found about this case, none mentioned her being sexually assaulted. And according to Maria, the only thing missing from the apartment was $100 she left on a dresser. Ana's wallet, phone, and all other valuables were found in the apartment. And there was no reason to believe that someone did this as a form of retaliation against her adult children either. They didn't have any connections or bad blood with anyone involved in gangs, drugs, or any type of serious criminal activity like this. Why Anna was targeted is one of the largest mysteries in this case. There were also no reports of gunshots in the building that day, and when investigators went door to door to ask neighbors what they heard or saw, they didn't seem to be getting any closer to why someone would do this or how they seemingly went unnoticed. But just as detectives were beginning to dig into why this may have happened, Anna's neighbor was also found deceased. It's now Sunday, May 13th, 2018, Mother's Day, just 2 days after Anna was found shot in her apartment. And unfortunately, here we do have some conflicting reporting. In every statement I could find from police about these cases, they say a family member found Basil Gray. But according to reporting by Michael Daly for the Daily Beast, at about 4:30 p.m., 54-year-old Basil Gray's ex-girlfriend, whose name has been kept anonymous, used a hidden spare key to let herself into his apartment, 5B. She hadn't heard from Basil in a while and was becoming concerned. She did try knocking, but when there was no answer, she just let herself in using the spare key. Whoever it was that found Basil, they found him on the floor of his living room, covered in dried blood. The same precinct was called to the same apartment floor that they'd been at just a few days earlier to investigate another homicide. Basil had been shot multiple times in the torso, and it was clear that he'd been there for at least a few days. Like the scene at Anna's apartment, there was no clear motive. The apartment hadn't been ransacked, and there was no sign of a struggle to get into the apartment. And as investigators began pouring through the little forensic evidence they did have, they quickly determined that both Anna and Basil had likely been shot by the same gun. This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Hers. If you've tried everything to lose weight and still feel stuck, this summer can be different. Weight Loss by Hers is designed to support you in reaching your goals, with access to an affordable range of FDA-approved GLP-1 medications, including the Wegovy pill and the Wegovy pen. Everything is 100% online through Hers. You'll connect with a licensed provider who will determine if treatment is even right for you. If prescribed, your medication is delivered right to your door. No insurance necessary. And it doesn't stop there. Weight Loss by Hers goes beyond medication by offering access to 24/7 messaging with your care team, and tons of in-app lifestyle and nutrition tips, like recipes, meal plans, fitness videos, sleep content, and more. Ready to reach your goals? Visit forhers.com/crime to get personalized, affordable care that gets you. That's forhers.com/crime. forhers.com/crime. Weight Loss by Hers is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information, and restrictions, visit forhers.com. This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Jones Road Beauty. I don't know about you guys, but I hate the heavy, caked-on look. You know what I'm talking about. The older I get, the more I realize that looking good starts with good skincare. That's why I'm obsessed with the Miracle Balm from Jones Road Beauty. It provides that effortless, natural look I'm looking for without a ton of makeup. You can use it as a highlighter, bronzer, blush, or lip tint. It really is the ultimate no-fuss multitasker. But my favorite part is that all of the Jones Road Beauty products are good for your skin. But if you are looking for a little more coverage, they also just launched their brand new foundation stick. It's still skincare forward, but delivers buildable, real coverage while feeling completely weightless on your skin. This is modern-day makeup that's clean, strategic, and multifunctional for effortless routines. For a limited time, our listeners are getting a free full-size mascara on their first purchase when they use code JUSTICE at checkout. Just head to jonesroadbeauty.com and use code JUSTICE at checkout. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. By Mother's Day 2018, what began as a homicide investigation into the death of Anna Del Valle was suddenly a double homicide, likely by the same perpetrator. So let's go over these crime scenes and what we know about what was found, starting with Anna. Investigators believe she was likely killed shortly after 9 a.m., not long after Maria called her mother to ensure she hadn't accidentally locked her out of the apartment. See, when Maria left for work that morning, she found that their front door was unlocked. What she later told the Unsolved Mysteries podcast was extremely odd, because Louise had already left for work, and they were extremely diligent about locking the door behind them. So when Maria left for work, she locked it behind her, and on her way to walk to the subway, she had this realization that maybe their mother had left it unlocked to do something quickly within the building, possibly to clean the hallway since she was always known to do that. So she calls her mom, and her mom assures her that she was still in the apartment, just in a different room. Why the door was unlocked is still unknown. But from there, we know that Maria and her twin brother Luis are out of the apartment all day. This was verified by investigators who obtained surveillance video of the building that day. Both Maria and Luis are seen leaving and don't return until Maria finds her mom and calls 911. Now, it is extremely worth noting that a mop was found outside of the apartment door, but again, it wasn't unusual due to Anna's habit of cleaning the hallway. And as far as I could find, no DNA was found on it to imply it was used for nefarious purposes, or with the intent to cover up the crime scene. Inside the apartment, there are no signs of forced entry, and really almost no forensic evidence at all. According to the interview Detective Stephen Minucci gave to the Unsolved Mysteries podcast, they recovered a small amount of DNA from the scene. But, quote, forensically, there was not a great deal to go on, end quote. So take that for what you will. That's really all we know. The furniture was not disturbed, there were no fingerprints, and the murder weapons were gone. Yes, you guys, investigators determined that Anna was shot with 2 different guns, a 9mm and a .380. Whether this was one person with 2 guns or 2 people is something investigators are still exploring, though it does seem to lean more towards 2 people being involved. Like I told you earlier, investigators do have video in this case. There were cameras in the lobby and the elevator of the building. That's how they were able to rule out Anna's children. But unfortunately, that really seems to be the most they got from that footage. Or at least that's what Detective Stephen Minucci with the NYPD told the Unsolved Mysteries podcast. Though he does add one very important caveat. They weren't able to identify every person captured on video that day. He says some faces in these videos were hidden, either naturally by a jacket or a hat, or on purpose in some cases. But he's pretty clear that there's no aftermath of the killings that they could pinpoint. No one running from the scene or anyone covered in blood. Nothing obvious. No one in the footage stood out, but everyone in the footage was inspected. I think that's one of the most frustrating parts of this case. Unless the killer or killers entered these apartments from something like a fire escape or a service elevator that wasn't being monitored, it seems like they likely have video of the perpetrators. And trust you guys, I did look it up. There are interior fire escapes in this building. Basically, instead of being on the outside like you might picture New York City, they're on the inside. And there is definitely a service elevator that requires a key to use. But again, as far as we know, the only cameras in this building were in the lobby and on the main elevator. So although the police haven't said outright that there are other ways to get into this building and up to the 5th floor, it seems very clear that there are. But let's talk about Basil and the scene at his apartment next door. Basil was also in the middle of the floor and was shot multiple times. Investigators found blood on the door, wall, in the kitchen, and a trail leading from the front door to his body. They believe he was shot at the door and later made his way to where he was found. And again, we have little forensic evidence from the perpetrator or perpetrators. No signs of forced entry or that the apartment had been ransacked. Using ballistics, they were able to determine that one of the guns used to kill Anna, the 9mm, was also used to kill Basil. When investigators reviewed the surveillance again to track Basil's movements on Friday, this is what they saw. Anna's son leaves the building first, followed by her daughter sometime after, before 9 a.m. Then they see Basil leaving the apartment and returning close to 9 a.m. with a cup of coffee. He walks into the elevator and out of the elevator with his cup of coffee. It was later found on his nightstand about 3/4 full. Now, when investigators knock on doors trying to find witnesses who may have heard or seen something, most people don't answer the door for the police. But a few do, and even fewer tell them that they did recall hearing what could have been gunshots between 9:30 and 10 a.m. that morning. So this is now the time window that they believe both murders likely occurred during. But again, they keep going back to motive. Basil was newer to the building than Anna. He'd been there about 5 years and she'd been there over 20. And while they did know each other, they were neighbors, and they were described as friendly, they were not close. No one was able to pinpoint any issues with Basil and Anna with anyone else in the building, or really at all. Like Anna, Basil also didn't have a troubling past. While his criminal record wasn't completely clear like Anna's, he was never involved in any violent crime or serious crime according to detectives. And he had no known affiliation with people or groups who were deemed dangerous. In short, these were two older people who generally seemed to stay out of trouble. Now, after investigators determined that this was likely a double homicide by the same person or persons, the entire building was on lockdown, and police spoke to every person who exited the building. They also deployed additional patrol resources to monitor the area. But they were still at the same stopping point. A few people think that they might have heard gunshots, but that's really it. So, as we see in these cases, to try to understand why someone may have wanted Anna and Basil dead, they dig deeper into their past for any clues they could gather. This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Quince. Summer always makes me rethink what I'm reaching for every day. Lighter fabrics, better materials, pieces that just feel good the moment you put them on and look effortless. That's why I keep coming back to Quince. They focus on high-quality essentials, like breathable linen, soft organic cotton, and washable silk. It really is a great balance where everything feels elevated, but also easy. Quince has beautiful pieces like 100% European linen pants, dresses, and tops with styles starting at just $32. And everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Basically, they work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality, not brand markup. My summer uniform at this point really consists of linen. I'm either in a linen dress, linen shorts, or for a little more sun coverage, my linen pants. And of course, I'm pairing it with some sandals, my favorite Quince sapphire necklace, and my brown Italian leather bag that goes with everything. Elevate your summer wardrobe. Go to quince.com/justice for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/justice for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/justice.
The Hulu original series, Furious, is coming to Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus July 27th.
There are 3 victims we know of. The suspect is female, white, late 20s.
Female serial killers kill for power, control. I believe there's a deeper motivation here.
You have no idea who you're dealing with, and you are gonna end up dead.
I've been waiting for you.
Watch the Hulu original series, Furious, on July 27th. Streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
To try to understand what happened to Anna Del Valle and Basil Gray, investigators first have to understand who they were. Anna grew up in Honduras, and in 1983 she immigrated to the U.S. as a single mother with 3 young children, all under the age of 10. Hector is the oldest, and then the twins Luis and Maria. As soon as Anna got to New York, she was adamant that she was going to create a good life for her kids. Like I mentioned earlier, apartment 5C at the Bushwick houses had been their home for decades. Anna provided for her children by working as a seamstress, making sweaters in a factory for years. She was paid by the number of garments she could produce, and her kids recalled that while they weren't wealthy, they always had what they needed at home and for school. But eventually that factory closed, and Anna began a new career as a professional cleaner until her retirement. Anna's oldest son moved out and started a family of his own, while her twins, Maria and Luis, continued to live in the apartment. And Anna very much prioritized her family, especially when she became a grandmother. Her apartment became the place where they'd all gather for home-cooked meals. That was really her love language. But even after she retired, Anna wasn't someone that liked to sit still. Maria later told the Daily Beast, quote, "She didn't like to stay home. She'd be out in the community. Everyone knew her," end quote. She filled her days with activities and socializing. She would often go to a nearby community center where she participated in yoga and Zumba classes. She also enjoyed taking some of their cooking classes and began knitting. It seems like Anna really filled her days enjoying the fruits of her labor in her retirement years. After decades of hard work raising 3 kids on her own, retirement was finally supposed to be the chapter where she could simply enjoy her life. But investigators did discover a disruption in her normal pattern. On May 11th, 2018, the day that she was murdered, Anna wasn't out of her apartment as she normally was. She was actually waiting for someone with the New York City Housing Authority to inspect a leak that had been causing water to drip into her unit. But as frustrating as this is to hear, public reporting doesn't establish whether anyone from NYCHA ever came to the apartment that day. And I wasn't able to find any comment from law enforcement about this aspect of the case. Really, everything we know about this comes from Anna's interview with Michael Daly for the Daily Beast. So, like I always say, take that for what you will. Now, as far as Basil Gray, unfortunately, we know much less about him. But just because his life hasn't been shared in the media as much as Anna's, it doesn't make it any less full or make his life any less important. What we do know is that he was a brother, uncle, neighbor, and friend. Like I told you earlier, he'd been in the Bushwick houses for about 5 years, and really seemed to keep to himself. But there was one thing that both Anna and Basil had in common. They were both concerned and vocal about crime they saw in their building, specifically the selling and buying of drugs. Both Anna and Basil had called police over this activity several times over the years. And naturally, as no other obvious motive is apparent in this case, the NYPD had to consider that both were killed in an act of retaliation. Though that is just a theory. And nothing I found points to there being any evidence that this is the case. Actually, my researcher Jessica found something that points to exactly the opposite. NYPD Detective Thomas Hanley told ABC 7 New York, quote, "It was a brazen act. I don't think the plan at the moment was to kill 2 people, but I think that's the way the plan ended up," end quote. Another detective told the New York Post that they think it would have been extremely difficult to pinpoint who was calling the police about crime in the building due to the sheer number of residents who live there. Now, of course, I feel like anything is possible in true crime, but this doesn't seem to be the theory that the police feel is most likely. So if they weren't specifically targeted, how did this happen? Well, one theory points to that mop outside of Anna's apartment. Some people, including Anna's daughter Maria, have speculated that maybe she was a witness to something while she was in the hallway that morning, possibly some type of crime like a drug deal. And according to ABC 7 News, detectives have explored the idea that maybe Basil had heard the gunshots, went out to check on Anna, and that's when the gun was turned on him. That would explain him being shot at the door. But because we don't know their exact times of death, the opposite could also be true. Maybe Basil was shot first and Anna came out to see what was going on. The likely multiple perpetrators tied her up and decided they couldn't let her live after witnessing their actions. Both people shot her so that they would both have their hands dirty and essentially keep the secret due to mutually assured destruction. And again, we do have another quote from the NYPD that could lead us down this path. Detective Stephen Minucci told CBS News, quote, "We believe it may have been drug-connected, not to the victims themselves, but rather to the drug trade in the area," end quote. Maria's wondered this too. She told the New York Post, quote, "You couldn't go down the stairs without seeing people doing drugs. People would be playing dice. I'm not sure if someone heard she was calling cops, or maybe they were looking for someone else and she came out at the wrong time," end quote. Now, I do think it's worth noting here that a narcotic dog was brought to the scene and didn't alert to drugs inside of either of the apartments. But of course, that doesn't mean it didn't happen somewhere else in the building or in the hallway. Unfortunately, this was really more of just a brief mention of this investigative measure in that Daily Beast article. Detectives also spoke with known criminals who lived in the building, but all of them said that they didn't know anything about the murders. And I get it, I'm not one to easily trust a random criminal, but Lieutenant Mike Spezio told Michael Daly, quote, "I believe many of them told us the truth," end quote. So again, take that for what you will. We know that detectives spoke with many residents of the building, which didn't lead to any information, and that's caused people to wonder if the silence isn't necessarily from a lack of knowledge, but from a fear of their own safety. Which feels like a very reasonable conclusion. I mean, even in the early months of this case, Maria only appeared in media interviews on camera anonymously, which again, I completely understand. It's a terrifying situation not only for her, but everyone who lives there. But overall, even though detectives did seem to work the case thoroughly during the early days of the investigation, they were still quickly hitting walls. However, just as they were running out of possible theories and witnesses, they received something that could potentially help track down Anna and Basil's killers.
Need a laptop that's built to perform and designed to last all day? Select Windows 11 PCs starting at $499.99 are now at Best Buy. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
In September 2018, law enforcement released video footage, hoping the public could help them identify who was in it. They also stressed that the individuals were not considered suspects and were just wanted for questioning. But this is what the video shows. It's shot through a peephole on the 5th floor of the building, the same floor Anna and Basil lived on. According to police, the video was taken around the same time they believe the murders occurred. We don't know what prompted this anonymous person to start recording, but it shows 3 people bundled up in warm clothing, just kind of pacing. Now, when we talk about bad, grainy footage in true crime, this one is exactly what we're talking about. It's just incredibly blurry, so you can't see anyone's face. But you can make out some of what they're wearing, vaguely. They're in coats and appear to be wearing hats. In some reporting, it says that this is 2 men and 1 woman, but that's really hard for me to see. At least some of the clothing looks pretty baggy, and at least one of them might be wearing white. Of course, I'll have everything up for you guys that I can on the Voices for Justice podcast website and on social media so you can take a look. And of course, share. But that's what I see personally. Now, just to kind of add to the atmosphere of this building, after this video was released to the public, law enforcement had to relocate the witness and their family from their apartment after they said that they were in fear for their safety. And unfortunately, despite all of that, it doesn't seem that anything came from this video. As frustrating as this is to say, that's pretty much where these cases are today. On the 1-year anniversary of the murders, Anna's kids organized a vigil outside of the Bushwick houses. They passed out flyers to remind people of their mother, while her oldest son, Hector, spoke into a megaphone and addressed those inside. At one point, he said, quote, "It could be your mother next," end quote.
"There's a hole in the floor where my mother lived. I want you out. I want you to say something. You're mad."
You're not safe anywhere. My mom was in her own apartment. When you go to church now, in school. So where are you safe now?
Hector also told the Brooklyn Eagle that day, quote, "She thought moving into that housing would help her. People live in fear. It's just scary because I'm afraid for my brother, my sister. They've taken enough. And we've got these people out there who don't give one iota for other people's life," end quote. And according to that article, Luis and Maria moved out of their childhood home after the murders. Hector said, quote, "They're supposed to be living there, but how could you? There's a hole in my mother's living room where the last bullet went," end quote. For the 1-year anniversary, the NYPD also released a video on their Facebook page, pleading for anyone with information to come forward.
I'm Deputy Chief Charles McAvoy, the Executive Officer, Patrol Borough, Brooklyn North. On Saturday, May 11th, marks the one-year anniversary of a double homicide which occurred inside 140 Moore Street within the Bushwick housing developments. We are pleading to the public to come forward with any type of information possible, anything that you may have seen that would aid the Detective Bureau in investigating this double homicide. No tip is too small, and again, we are pleading with the public to please come forward.
My name is Detective Steve Minucci from the 90th Precinct Detective Squad. I'm the lead detective on the murders of Anna Del Valle and Basil Gray from 140 Moore Street on May 11th, 2018. Anna Del Valle was found by her daughter inside of her apartment in 140 Moore Street, bound and shot to death 3 times. 2 days later, on May the 13th, her neighbor, Mr. Basil Gray, was found also shot inside his apartment by his family. I think for the public right now, people might be feeling 2 things. One of them is fear. I think people are scared to come forward if they have information. We need people who know what happened to come forward. Any little bit of information that you might know could help us. And it's your community, it's your home this happened in. You should come forward and help us with anything you might know.
Detective Thomas Hanley, Brooklyn North Homicide Squad. I'm the lead homicide detective on the Anna Del Valle, Basil Gray murder investigation. The first thing that jumps off the page at us is the time of day that we believe it occurred. We believe the homicide occurred about 9:30 in the a.m. on the 11th of May, 2018. And the body wasn't discovered until 6 p.m. that night because she was inside of her apartment. And then 2 days later, Basil Gray was discovered by family members also inside his locked apartment. Both victims were neighbors. Both were victims of gunshot wounds. And through our investigation early on, it showed that both crimes were related through ballistic evidence. We've been out there since the onset of the case, handing out tip cards, reward posters, which started out at $10,000 and then was raised to $20,000 for anyone with information related to or about this case. One thing the public can do is Crime Stoppers, 1-800-577-TIPS or crimestoppers.com online. The one thing we want to stress to the public that all contact with Crime Stoppers remains confidential. One thing we want to stress to anyone that might have information or might hear about the case and say, oh, maybe I know something or heard something, or I heard from somebody, is that Anna Del Valle was a longtime resident of the Bushwick housing development. She lived there for over 20 years. She raised a family there. Basil Gray is a New Yorker for a long, long time. Lived in that building for approximately 5 years. They were both conscientious about their development. They tried to make it a better place. And I think they affected people in that development. And the people that live there know them, dealt with them, spoke with them, said they were cordial on a daily basis. So what we want to do is remember that, what people were trying to do to make it a better place, call, let us know, and let us decide what information is important and not important.
Despite rewards totaling up to $70,000, no tip has publicly resulted in an arrest. The FBI has said that investigators are working on leads, but don't have enough evidence to charge anyone. After nearly a decade without answers, Maria told 4 New York News that she believes social media will be the key to solving this case. Which brings me right to our call to action. Please share both of these cases. Anna Del Valle and Basil Gray deserve justice. Their loved ones have gone so long without answers, and there's clearly a large possibility that there's a killer or killers on the loose in Brooklyn. You never know if someone has information they may not realize could blow a case wide open. Your share could make all the difference. At the very least, it reminds their loved ones and the NYPD that the public hasn't forgotten about them, and will continue to seek justice until these crimes have been solved. As a reminder, 62-year-old Anna Del Valle was murdered on May 11, 2018 inside of her apartment at the Bushwick houses in Brooklyn, New York. Her neighbor, 54-year-old Basil Gray, was also murdered inside his apartment during that same time frame. The FBI is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to the identification, arrest, and conviction of those responsible. There's also an additional $20,000 NYPD Crime Stoppers reward. Anyone with information is urged to contact the FBI New York at 212-384-1000 or the NYPD Crime Stoppers unit at 1-800-577-TIPS. But, as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Voices for Justice is hosted and produced by me, Sarah Turney, and is a Voices for Justice media original. This episode contains writing and research assistance by Jessica Quaz. If you love what we do here, please don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show in your podcast player. It's an easy and free way to help us and help more people find these cases in need of justice. Welcome to the Secret After Show. The studio door is open and our emotional support puppies, Popcorn and Heber, are in the room. Let's go right into the case. This was another one of those cases where Jessica recommended it, and as soon as I looked at it, I thought, why isn't this getting more attention? You guys know, these cases are like my pet peeve. I see something and I'm like, double homicide? Neighbors? Like this, the circumstances feel like something that would be large in the media. And for some reason that I could guess at, but I won't, they aren't making the media. Now, I should say, right, they were on the Unsolved Mysteries podcast. It was featured there. There are a good number of articles. There's just not a lot recent. And when I say, like, that they're not big in the media, I mean, like, they're not making big waves. This isn't one of those cases that I hear people bring up all the time. I mean, I didn't hear about it until Jessica recommended it to me, and I hate that. So just know, when I say, like, they don't have a lot of media, I mean, like, they're not larger than life, right? They're not making these huge waves. These are not household names in true crime, even though I feel like the circumstances of the case really demand that they should be, like, if that makes sense. And it's hard, right? Because I hate that the cases that have these very strange circumstances are usually the ones that make these waves, right? It's either like somebody who's popular, somebody who's beautiful, or something that has these like crazy circumstances. Of course, that's not like a hard rule. That's just usually what I see. So in short, that's why I really wanted to cover it. I saw this, it needs attention, let's bring attention to it. And it's hard, right? I feel like, like I said in the episode, it does appear that investigators work this pretty thoroughly early on, but we also don't know a lot about it, right? We don't even know if the little DNA found at the scene was tested. We don't know if they tried to find surveillance from outside of the building. I mean, I have to hope that they did. But I keep coming back to, like, whoever was in that building has to be on video at some point. And could it be those 3 people that the NYPD pointed to in that footage saying that they, were just wanted for questioning? I think it could be. I don't know, you guys. This is a hard one, especially when there's, like, no clear motive. But I really do, like I was saying in the episode, lean towards the theory that someone saw something, and either Anna or Basil came out to check on one or the other. You guys know what I mean. And unfortunately, I do think that this case has been hindered by fear, which again is completely understandable. It's so hard for me because, yes, I think every person who knows something should come forward. But what do you do if you have information and you're terrified? I would hope, I guess selfishly for these cases, that you would still come forward. And I will say, If you are somebody out there with information who's terrified, I think looking at the neighbor who provided the video footage is a good thing to look at, right? We know that he was scared for his life. He was scared for his family's life, and the police did assist in moving him. Now, without his name, I can't go look him up and make sure that nothing bad happened to him. But this does seem to be a case where the police is offering protection to witnesses. So if you're out there listening, you know something and you're scared, please consider submitting the tip, even if you do it anonymously. Tips.fbi.gov is somewhere you can submit those anonymously. I mean, even if you have to go to a library, type it up and send it, it could change this case forever. Now, let's go on to media discrepancies. My goodness, this was a frustrating one. Even just the pronunciation of Basil's name was hard to track down, and I can't even tell you I'm 1,000% right because I haven't heard a family member say it. I went with the most common pronunciation. I went with what police most often said because I have to believe that they spoke to someone in Basil's family. But if I got it wrong, I'm very, very sorry. Also, of course, I think one of the most glaring discrepancies that I told you up front was who found Basil. Because we do have that article that thoroughly describes this ex-girlfriend who stayed anonymous, but still thoroughly describes her finding him, right? But then I kept going back to the police, and every single time they say family member, a family member found him. So again, I just don't know what the truth is, and I was pretty upfront about that in the episode, as I usually am. But again, I just wanted to I feel like I have a guilty conscience is the word I was looking for about these media discrepancies. So that's why I just confess to you guys every single time. I'm here are the 15 things I found. This is why I chose this. It's so hard. And I know that contributes to people not covering these cases as well, right? It's so much easier to cover a case when you have somebody being very loud in the media and telling you all of these details. And it's really heartbreaking that I was able to tell you this whole story of Anna coming to this country and working hard, right? Providing for her kids and just being an upstanding citizen. And then with Basil, it's I can't even tell you if I got his name right. It's so hard. And again, please do not blame these family members. I do not. I never ever blame a family member for not speaking to the media. It is a type of hell I do not wish upon my worst enemy. Now, I will say that there were also media discrepancies about how many times they were shot, where the gunshot wounds were. So again, I just heavily relied on police statements. But let's go on to our hero of this episode. I gotta give it up to the NYPD, you guys. Getting there within minutes, doing what appears to be a pretty thorough investigation, at least early on, and creating that video on their Facebook page. That's not something I see in most cases from the NYPD. Of course, I also have to give it up to Maria, Anna's daughter. She has been so vocal in the media. I mean, her kids have all together, but I think because Maria's the one who found her mom. And you know that she was scared early on. There's just so... I'm getting emotional. There's so many layers of trauma and fear. She has every reason to just live in that grief and trauma and not speak to the media. And she's out there, Hector and Luis are out there fighting for their mom. I think it's very admirable. But let's go on to our segment of hope. This is by Nicole Acosta, from People magazine, and the title reads, Florida man said he had info about a 1987 cold case. Then cops arrested him on suspicion of murder. The article goes on to read, Gary Edward Glowax, again, I don't care about perpetrators' names. He was 70, was arrested in connection with the 1987 killing of 20-year-old Melissa Taylor Ellison. And listen, I know I just went on a rant about coming forward to the police, and I will say, if you killed somebody, especially you should come forward and tell them you have information. It's like the petty part of me really loves to see it when these murderers put their foots in their mouths and get caught. It's one of my favorite things to see in true crime. You guys know I don't cover solved, right? So I don't always know a ton about all the solved cases. But whenever it's like a killer tries to taunt the police and they get caught, it's very, very satisfying. And that appears to be the case here. The article says a Florida man who told police he had information about a decades-old cold case found himself under arrest on suspicion of murder. Again, Gary, who cares what your last name is, 70, is accused of killing Melissa Taylor Ellison, a 20-year-old mother, in December of 1987, according to a statement from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Oh, you guys, this is hard to hear. Nearly 40 years ago, officers responding to a report of a dead person found Ellison in her bed with blunt force injuries, the sheriff's office said. Investigators said Ellison's roommates checked on her after hearing her toddler crying on the living room couch. Eventually, the case went cold, but on Wednesday, July 8th, 2026, that man contacted the Clay County Sheriff's Office telling dispatchers he wanted to provide information about Ellison's death. He was later interviewed by investigators with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, where they obtained a warrant for his arrest. And unfortunately, it's a little unsatisfying, like we see with these newer developments. Essentially, he was just booked into the Duval County Jail on charges of second-degree murder and burglary with assault or battery. He hasn't entered a plea as far as this article knows, and authorities have not shared a possible motive for the killing. But it does look like this case has been resolved. They did make a statement about the family, but it's not from the family, so I don't know exactly how they feel, but I really hope that this gave them more answers and they are satisfied with this arrest. Now, surprise guys, I actually have a second segment of hope for you. It's not exactly true crime related, so that's why this is kind of like a bonus segment of hope. But this comes from the Brooklyn paper and their arts and entertainment section. And it has to do with the housing unit where Anna and Basil lived. The title reads, Bushwick Houses residents helped create Bushwick Rooted, a new public art installation celebrating the community's heritage. And it's just like a really sweet article about how they created this huge art installation around this building that makes it just happier and brighter. And they say hopefully a better place, especially for the children to live. And this is also making me emotional, you guys. I'm just that person, so forgive me, but that's also why I'm here. So it says, Bushwick Rooted is part of From Roots to Arts, celebrating NYCHA's cultural heritage. It's the first Artist in Residence pilot program. The initiative places artists within the communities across all 5 boroughs, pairing them with residents to create public artwork that reflects each neighborhood's history, culture, and unique stories. Rather than being defined solely by artists, the project was shaped through collaboration with residents who contributed ideas centered on food, wildlife, and community life. NYCHA officials added that the project is part of the Connected Communities Initiative, a resident-driven urban design framework focused on revitalizing over 2,400 acres of open space across more than 300 public housing developments. I wish you guys could see these photos. I don't know why I'm getting so emotional. It's just so amazing to see art and beauty in the face of so much darkness. And in these pictures, these kids that helped are so happy. They had a whole ribbon cutting ceremony to open it. It is so cute and so sweet. So while it's not our traditional segment of hope, I thought it was very, very appropriate for this episode as I found it in my research about it. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.